Today's literary terms video is about metaphors and similes. Much of this will seem like a review, but hopefully there is a few things in here that you didn't know that you'll learn after this lesson. To start with, we're going to talk about similes. It's important to know that a simile is a type of metaphor. That's right, similes are metaphors. But it's a type of metaphor that uses like or as, and that's always the case. And because that's always the case, it makes them obvious and easy to find. Take a look at the examples below. The notes in the song rang out as softly as the footsteps of a dormouse. In this example, we're comparing the notes in the song to the footsteps of a dormouse. The word as kind of signals where we're breaking in that comparison, so you can see what two things are being compared. Take a look at the next one. He had a smile like an industrial meat grinder. Again, the same thing. The word separates the two things that are being compared. In this case, a smile and an industrial meat grinder. Metaphors, on the other hand, are not similes. So it's that idea that all similes are metaphors, but not all metaphors are similes. A metaphor is a broad term that describes a comparison that transfers the sense or aspects of one word to another. In other words, you're saying that this thing is that thing. Because of that, it makes them subtle and harder to locate. So if you're reading a longer passage or a longer sentence, sometimes there's multiple metaphors being worked into that sentence that you may not catch. Like in this example, the moon was a ghostly galleon tossed upon cloudy seas. If you look at this, it's easy to figure out right away that the moon is being compared to this galleon or this ship, but what we oftentimes don't catch is that the clouds that the moon is kind of floating amongst, the clouds are being compared to the seas. So when we kind of look at all of this together, again, metaphors being subtle and similes kind of hitting you over the head, some other things to kind of keep in mind is that a lot of metaphors and similes are cliches. So when you're writing your own, you want to be fresh and you want to create metaphors that fit the story. You can come up with some pretty crazy comparisons, but if it doesn't really fit the tone of the story, then they kind of fall flat. The part of the reason that we use them in the first place is because they help us understand things. They make things a little less confusing. In fact, all language can be considered a metaphor, that's right, all language can be considered metaphors. So instead of describing the thing with the flat top and the four legs, you call it a table. You're saying that this table is that thing that I just described. It makes it a lot less confusing to just say, hey, get those things off the table. All right? The other thing is that they add depth to what we're trying to say. Using these strong comparisons make our writing more interesting, and it can make a story more interesting and make it come alive for us when we read it. So again, in a nutshell, they're not that difficult and we see them everywhere, but again, sometimes it's just catching them when we least expect them.